What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Mello with Marty's Buick GMC and Chevrolet, and in today's video, we'll be discussing a new 2023 Chevy Astro van and asking the all-important question of this series, would you buy one? So let's get into it. Alright, so today we're talking Chevy Astro van. Marketed by GM as the van that can, the Astro was first introduced in 1985.
In all the universe, there's never been anything like the new size Chevy Astro. Chevy Astro.
And was the first minivan built by General Motors as a direct competitor to Chrysler, because at the time, Chrysler's newly launched Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager were flying off the shelf faster than TP was in 2020. What a weird time that was. Assembly of the Astro was completed in Baltimore, Maryland at the aptly named Baltimore Assembly Plant, and when it came time for production, GM adapted many of their off-the-shelf powertrain components, things like the engines and transmissions, right from the Chevy S10, in order to reduce costs to its consumers and speed production timelines up. The first generation Astros, which were produced between, I believe it was 1985 and 1994, came with engine choices ranging from an eye-watering 98 horsepower 2.5-liter four-cylinder to a 200 horsepower 4.3-liter V6. However, the four-cylinder version was only offered in the cargo configuration and was dropped after 1990, which was the same year that GM introduced a new all-wheel drive system, the first US-built minivan to do so, which was certainly a big deal at the time. Not everything came with all-wheel drive, believe it or not. In 1995, the second-generation Astro came to life, and for me, this is the Astro van that I remember as a kid, and the one that would most often be seen unloading 75 kids at sporting events on weekends. I swear, like a clown car when those things would show up. You know, the good old days, before every new vehicle to hit the market was an SUV or a crossover or some weird mutant mix mash in between. Now, the second-generation Astro was facelifted with an extended nose that closely resembled the new at the time full-sized Express vans. But on the higher spec models, the Astro received the updated horizontally mounted rectangular headlights. You know the ones I'm talking about, right? The ones that debuted on full-size trucks back in 1990, and then those same headlights would eventually appear on the smaller trucks in 1998. In 2003, the Astro received its last big series of changes. GM upgraded things like the chassis of the Astro with beefier suspension components, we got larger disc brakes, and 16-inch wheels that were pulled pretty much right off the full-size GM half-ton pickups. And although the Astro was a massive success for GM, for some reason they had initially planned to end production and discontinue the vehicle after 2002. But because of the continued demand from customers, the Astro managed to surge on until 2005, as GM finally began to see that the popularity of the SUV was just rapidly increasing, too much so to ignore. Now, looking at the market these days, the minivan, which was once one of the most popular segments in the United States, has been, for the most part, put on the back burner. I mean, sure, look, we still have Chrysler has its, the Pacifica, and Honda's got the Odyssey, Toyota has the Sienna, but with declining sales year after year, I mean, look how ugly these sales are. I don't foresee these things lasting much longer. And I think the biggest reason for the continued decline is, just look at them. I mean, nobody wants to drive something looks like that anymore. There's just nothing exciting about them. Nothing, in my opinion, at least, that would make you happy to fork over your hard-earned money for one. But that doesn't mean that people don't want the space and the utility that a van can provide. In a world where we have a seemingly endless number of options when it comes to SUVs and crossovers, what if GM decided to mix things up and bring back the Astro van, since we know they like bringing nameplates back, only do it in a way that could change people's perspective of what a minivan is. Easier said than done, perhaps, but that doesn't make it impossible. GM has already let it be known that the current generation Express van is entering the last stage of its life. So, what's next? Well, thanks once again to my good friend and super talented artist, Oscar Vargas, known on Instagram as WBArtist20. We put our heads together and we came up with this. A new 2023 Chevy Astro van, and I absolutely love this thing. Now, for starters, just like the manufacturers, we started with the top-tier trim, basing it off the recently refreshed 2022 Silverado 1500 High Country, and by going to market built on a truck chassis, the Astro could retain the towing capacity and potentially the cargo capacities of the trucks, making them a much more viable option for consumers. And with GM now offering a 3-liter Duramax diesel, I think we've got a combination here that could certainly make people consider one of these over what we would traditionally think of now when we think minivan, or really just a van in general. Now, just for fun and comparison's sake, let's quickly put this up against the Pacifica. And you tell me which one you choose. And be honest, because I don't think this is even a contest. Give us the option of 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, 8-passenger, or cargo configuration. Give us a little customizational options, and honestly, things start to sound even sweeter. Low MSRP would also be nice, but of course, we would have to have power sliding doors on either side because, in my opinion, that's sort of a must-have these days if we're even considering a van, and definitely one of the benefits of owning a van. But honestly, I think this could work. I think the biggest issue that GM would face with something like this is the for sure drop in Yukon and Tahoe sales, as I think customers would strongly consider making a change to one of these. And if GM wanted to stir the pot, maybe not worry about it so much, roll out with a high top version, and then start eating up the Sprinter van's market share. Because right now there's really nothing to compete with that. It would certainly make a lot of sense to me, but then again, what do I know? Other than the fact that I know GM watches my videos because I hear about it from time to time. So if this is something you'd like to see come to life, answer the question of this series: would you buy one? For me, as someone who would never, ever in a million years consider a minivan or any van really, it's just me, I don't have a family to drive around, this conceptualized 2023 Chevy Astro van would actually have me reconsidering that stance. Although I don't think that there's much mini about this van, so perhaps calling it one is nothing more than an insult to something that could really make a wave in a market segment that is just exhausted by boring new SUV after boring new SUV after boring crossover. Unless, of course, we're talking about the new upcoming Corvette SUV. That thing could end up being pretty epic. But let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. If you guys made it this far into the video, if you could do me a huge favor, all I ask, just smash that like button. It really does help me out in a huge way. Subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe share the video with a friend. I'm sure you know somebody that might, benefit. Again, hit the share button. Be sure to check my friends out over at martysparts.com for all your GM OEM parts needs. Never, ever, ever pay over MSRP for one of your trucks ever. If you guys need a dealership, martysbuickgmc.com, martyschevrolet.com. Hope you guys have a great holiday week. Thanks again for watching, and take care. See you soon.